U.S. intelligence officials have concluded that Saudi Arabia's crown prince was behind the journalist's killing. Natasha Fatah is tracking the story and joins us now. Good morning, Natasha. What are we learning?
Good morning, John. So it's true. The CIA has announced that their conclusion is that Jamal Khashoggi, this journalist, Saudi national, was killed in Istanbul at the request of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, reportedly, a team of 15 Saudi nationals flew to Istanbul on a government aircraft and killed Khashoggi within the consulate where he had gone to pick up a number of documents. What the CIA examined were multiple sources of intelligence, including a phone call that they had intercepted between the prince's brother, Khalid bin Salman, who is also the Saudi ambassador to the United States, and Khashoggi. Now, reportedly, Khalid told Khashoggi in that phone call that you should go to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to get your documents and that you would be promised safety. And apparently this call was made at the direction of Mohammed bin Salman. So the other thing that the CIA is pointing to is that the Crown Prince is the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia right now. Everything, local, national affairs go through the Crown Prince, so it's virtually impossible that something like this would happen without the prince's knowledge and even his direct involvement. All of this, these findings, these conclusions contradict what the Saudi government, including the foreign minister who you see on your screen now, and the lead prosecutor, the country's crown prosecutor, have been saying, including this week, that the prince knew nothing about this and is not involved in the killing in any way. The Saudis have offered multiple versions of events and explanations, but the prosecutor did announce this week that they have 11 alleged suspects. He said that they would seek the death penalty for 5 of them. But the CIA is telling the world that, in fact, it is the Crown Prince who is essentially responsible for this journalist's killing, and that could seriously jeopardize the delicate relations between Saudi Arabia and President Trump.
Thanks, Natasha.
You're welcome.
For a closer look at the Khashoggi case, we're joined by Fawaz Georges. Now, he is the chair of Contemporary Middle Eastern Studies at the London School of Economics, and he joins us in London. Thanks so much, Fawaz. Always good to talk to you about this sort of thing. Just a few minutes ago, President Trump said that he will be speaking to the CIA and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo about Khashoggi. What's your reaction to the news this morning?
Well, you know, first of all, as you know, there are major internal tensions between the Trump administration and the security establishment. The fact that the CIA has gone over the head of President Trump in order to show that the Crown Prince is implicated in the killing of Khashoggi testifies to the divisions, the tensions between the CIA and the security apparatus and the Trump administration. Again, the Trump administration and President Trump and the Secretary of State Pompeo and the National Security Council advisor John Bolton have gone out of their way to shield the Crown Prince from the reverberations of the killing. But I think it's now coming to a head, and we're going to wait and see what's going to happen in the next 24 hours or a few days from now.
That head it's coming to might be perhaps more dire had there be, as you say, unity on behalf of the security establishment and the administration of the U.S. But still, where does this leave the Crown Prince at this point?
John, for your own viewers, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, is seriously injured. The question is it fatal? That is, does the announcement or the leaks by the CIA today, is it really a game changer? So far, I don't think so, because as long as President Trump relies on the Crown Prince for his Middle Eastern strategy, I think he's not going to throw the Crown Prince under the bus. This is my own reading at this particular moment, even though this reading could change after the briefing by the CIA and the national security apparatus to both the President and the Secretary of State today.
And yet, on his way to the aircraft to take him to California, the U.S. President again this morning saying what good friends he was with the leader of Turkey. And as we know, though, the administration has tried to foster better relationships with the Saudis. So where does this leave the Trump administration in all of this?
I mean, I think if you really dig in and try to understand American strategy, if there is a strategy, I don't think the Trump administration has a strategy. He has the elements of a strategy. He relies on the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to drive his elements of strategy in the Middle East, vis-a-vis Iran, the so-called the peace, the deal of the century on the Palestinian-Israeli peace process, the question keeping oil prices low, arms deals. So this is why the Trump administration, John, has been very reluctant to basically implicate the Crown Prince. And even though the CIA has leaked information claiming that the Crown Prince is implicated, I still think that the Trump administration will think twice before throwing the Crown Prince under the bus, because this would expose basically the weakness and the fragility of the Trump administration strategy in the Middle East.
Let's talk about the rest of the world. Canada has a $15 billion defense contract with the Saudis. Many other countries do, especially in Europe. And yet we have a situation where we have the assassination of a journalist with strong evidence implicating the Saudis. We also have the difficult relationship potentially with Turkey, with its crackdown on journalists and civil rights. So where does this leave the international community in terms of how they should or could react to all of this?
The big picture, if you ask me about the big picture, the international system, or you called it the international community, I wish there had been an international community, because we would not be where we are. I think at the end of the day, states care more about their interests, their material interests, their strategic interests, than the question of morality. Despite what the French president said during the anniversary of the end of World War I about the moral compass of nations. I mean, so far, despite everything that we have heard, neither the French president, nor the Canadian government, nor the American administration, or the British government. But if you really want to understand where the Crown Prince is in terms of really the responses of the international community, most of the arms deals of Saudi Arabia are with the United States, with the United Kingdom, and with France. And Canada is important in this regard, but not as critical. So without really basically a strong action by the United States and the United Kingdom and France, I don't think that the response of the international community will basically really add more pressure on the Crown Prince so far.
So in 6 months or a year from now, Fawaz, will this be a situation where it's viewed as a turning point, or will the death of Jamal Khashoggi be a footnote in history?
I think this is a turning point, even if the Crown Prince survives. My take, John, is that the Crown Prince will likely survive. Why? Because he basically holds most of the power centers in Saudi Arabia. He has a popular base of support among young Saudis. He has the support of the Trump administration so far. But I think the killing of Khashoggi has weakened the status and the standing of Saudi Arabia, and in particular the leadership of Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince. Ultimately, if the Crown Prince survives, he will be the king, and he is seriously injured. Think of how much damage, in terms of ideational damage, that the killing of Jamal Khashoggi has done. So regardless of whether the Crown Prince survives or not, the damage that has been exacted on Saudi Arabia is considerable. It's going to take many years for the leadership of Saudi Arabia to really overcome this damage.
Fawaz Gerges, thank you so much. Fawaz Gerges, the Chair of Contemporary Middle Eastern Studies at the London School of Economics.